All right, let's just dive right in. Today, we're doing an explainer on a really fascinating contemplative piece from October 22nd, 2022, called Branch Carbon Fair. Now, this isn't your typical dry financial document, you know? It actually reimagines the whole cold, hard world of economics through this deeply personal, almost spiritual lens. It's going to ask us to look at how we account for our own lives and maybe even figure out how we can balance our own emotional ledgers.
So before we even uncover who the author is, I really want to start with her core philosophy. It's all about treating gratitude itself as a quantifiable balance. By stating, "I am a net debtor in gratitude," she immediately sets the stage for a completely new kind of accounting. She isn't measuring her worth in physical assets or bank accounts, right? It's all about this overwhelming sense of thankfulness she owes to the world around her.
Section 1. A Poetic View of Finance, exploring the philosophical side of economics.
Here, she starts off by acknowledging simple human imperfection, characterizing herself as a debtor of sort. But check out how she actually plans to pay this debt. It's not with capital, and it's not with labor. She says, "With patience, I shall pay all I owe." Basically, she's relying on patience to settle her moral and spiritual debts, which beautifully frames personal growth as this gradual, forgiving repayment plan.
But wow, here is where she just completely flips the narrative on us. She transforms from a debtor into a creditor of sort. But again, the currency here is entirely redefined. As a creditor, she isn't demanding strict payments or charging crazy interest rates. Instead, she writes, "With mercy, I look on all I see." She's dispensing mercy to others, literally forgiving the debts they might owe her.
And this right here beautifully juxtaposes the two sides of her philosophical ledger. Think about it. On one side, as a debtor, she approaches her own shortcomings with patience. And then, on the flip side, as a creditor, she approaches the shortcomings of other people with mercy. It is literally an economic model built entirely on grace. How cool is that?
Section 2. Decoding Debt and Value, the Human Element of Currency.
Now, she completely transcends the whole idea of traditional money. She suggests that human beings are themselves a currency of sort. And you know how fiat money needs a solid anchor, like a strong economy, to hold its worth? Well, she notes that human value soars when it's anchored to worthy principles and goods. So her value isn't intrinsic to some stock market, it's deeply tied to her moral and spiritual anchors.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that her ultimate net position isn't measured in dollars, euros, or pounds at all. When she tallies up all her patience, her mercy, and her human currency, she remains a net debtor in gratitude. But she doesn't see this debt as a heavy burden, not at all. Instead, she boldly declares that with thoughtful melody, "I shall overflow." This debt of gratitude is actually something that produces pure joy and abundance.
Section 3. The Language of Economics, Owning the Instruments of Finance.
She defines finance not just as some cold system of wealth, hoarding, or complex math, but as a language. She writes so simply, "Finance is a language, I shall understand it." She views it as a tool for communication and for structuring thought, something she is fully determined to become absolutely fluent in.
And she does the exact same thing with the often feared concept of debt. I mean, to a lot of us, debt feels like a trap, right? But to her, it's merely an instrument. And even more importantly, she declares, "I shall own it." She is choosing to master and control this instrument rather than letting the instrument control her.
When we actually put these two definitions side by side, we get an incredibly empowering framework. Finance is a language to understand. Debt is an instrument to own. She empowers individuals to really master these financial concepts instead of being intimidated by them. It's this massive mindset shift from being a passive victim in an economic system to having active, deliberate mastery.
Let's move on to Section 4. Who is Oluyomi Oladavid? The mind behind the philosophy.
So, the brilliant author behind all of this is Oluyomi Oladavid. She's a Nigerian thought leader who, in her own words, deeply loves people. She is highly concerned with global development and genuine transformation. And honestly, you can start to see how someone with this big macro-level focus on transforming the globe would internalize concepts of debt, credit, and finance in such a deeply humanistic way.
That leads perfectly into Section 5, a vision for global transformation, translating poetry into policy.
Her professional mission is actually built on a very practical trifecta. She thrives on generating solutions, influencing policy and strategy, and providing clarity. This just proves that her poetry isn't just daydreaming. She uses her immense philosophical clarity to generate actionable solutions and influence actual, on-the-ground policy. She's literally translating the language of finance into tangible tools for human development.
And what exactly is the engine powering all of this? Well, she anchors her driven purpose directly in her faith, stating that her Father God owns and rules the universe. She says he acts as the driving force, the wheel within her wheels, behind all her policy work and her personal philosophy. This ultimate creditor, in her view, is really what allows her to approach the entire world with such overwhelming mercy and gratitude.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought, totally inspired by her incredible perspective. How will you use the language of finance and the instrument of debt to increase your own net gratitude? As you navigate your own life's ledger, I really hope her framework helps you look at your balances, both financial and emotional, in a completely new light.